Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a nice wreath out of one of our new brass filigree donuts that we just got in. This wreath design was created by Anna, and it's using this filigree design as a base to build on top of. The cool thing with this design, you can really use anything, and it doesn't need to be Christmas themed or a holiday theme. You really could go with different colors out of the box and make it your own. The other idea, other than a pendant for this wreath, would be actually to make it a Christmas ornament to hang on the tree. You can add in initials, you can add drops hanging down, so really have fun and kind of make it your own. If you need the form or any of the materials to build this Christmas wreath, you can go to the bottom of the video. There's a date stamp that says when the video was published, and underneath there's down arrows or a little show more tab that you can press on, and we'll give links to all of the different products that were used in this video. Again, take it and make it your own. You can take Anna's design here, use pretty much the exact same thing, or make it your own and have fun creating on your level. To do this holiday Christmas wreath, you are going to need the form. So the form here is a seafoam color that Anna did. You really don't see the form, as you can tell. I'm going to be using the brass filigree donut. It's a 35mm donut. They come in packs of 2, and I'm using the beige color of it. So I have the beige color here that I'll be using. You can see they're pretty thin, and they are going to work well as forms. So I just have one of those that I'll be using, and I'll save the other one for something else. They're rather large earrings, but you could go for earrings with them if you like to wear bigger earrings. So I'm going to use one as my wreath base. In addition to the form, you are going to need some beads. So in Anna's design here, she has the flower cups throughout the wreath. I'm going to be focusing my flower cups right along the bottom and doing more of a holly look with those. And then a collection of different beads held in place with some wildfire beading thread. I'm going to be using green since it's a wreath, and it's 0.006 green thread that I'm going to be using with a size 12 needle. In addition to the thread and the needle, the random beads that are created, I have the flower cups in the Aztec gold that I'll be using, just a couple along the bottom, probably 4 or 5. And to highlight the fact that it is a wreath, I have green colors of my crystals. So I have my 4mm Potomac crystals in the Peridot or Olivine AB color, and then I have the metallic green color here, that green iris, in the Rondelles in the 2x3. I also brought over some melons. Here Anna has 4mm melons, and then she has some of the same Olivine rounds, and then also she threw in some Swarovski 3mm crystals. I'm throwing in some melons in 3mm instead of 4mm because I want them to look like berries, and the melon beads here in this matte opaque red really have that berry look to them. To hold the beads in place as we're working with it, I have 15 seed beads in the Duracoat Galvanized Champagne color, and whatever color you use, that's what's going to be at the end of all these little wreath pieces. I also have an 11O in this matte silver lined red color that I'm going to be using in the inside of my flower cups. Rather than having a 15O, I'm going to highlight it and make it look a little bit more like a flower with the red on the inside. I also have sitting here some teardrops. The teardrops I figured could look like leaves. You can use teardrops, you can use Rizzo beads, kind of up to you. But I'm going to be using the matte metallic khaki iris and just picking out maybe 6 to 10 of them that have more of that green color and sticking them near my berries as I continue to work on the design. I'm also going to be attaching a bail, and I just have a gold-plated 11mm bail here. Also, they come in packs of 2 that I'm going to be creating and adding to the design so I have something to hang it on for a necklace. Anna wants to actually decorate the other side of hers, would just be a repeat of what I'm going to teach you, and then use it as an ornament to give to somebody for Christmas. So that's a cute idea as well. I have a nice workable surface that I will be using. I also have handy my thread zap or my cord cutter. I have a needle nose pliers to flatten out the end of the thread, which is going to make it much easier to get through that size 12 needle. And to get set up, I'm just going to basically open up my tubes, cut apart my strands, lay a nice collection of beads out, and we'll get ready to start our little filigree Christmas leaf, or Christmas wreath rather. So I have a collection of my beads poured out, and I have my thread on my needle about 5 feet of the beading thread. What I'm going to do is actually tie the thread onto the brass filigree donut. To do so, I'm going to put my thread through one of those tiny little holes from the back end or the bottom end. Then take that little end and go through one of the middle holes. So you can see there's a smaller hole on the inside and then a bigger hole on the outside. So I went through one of the tiny little holes there in the middle along the formation and then through one of these smaller holes along the bottom. Taking it to the back of the project, what is going to be the back, I'm going to tie a knot. I'm just tying an overhand knot once and then twice. If you need to, you can even pick up your pliers and grab and just pull nice and tight. There's a little bit of a tail there on the project. I'll use that eventually to tie the very end of the thread to as well. So as we come along the back here, I'll tie on to the end of the thread. So on the back, I should mention, you will see the thread along the back of the formation. So if you want to, you could also use some stiff stuff or some of the ultra suede to go ahead and cover up the back, or just decorate the back and the front. So to start out, we are literally going to be going up and down every single hole, adding a bead. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my thread and needle from the back towards the front and out one of the small holes. As I come out a small hole, I'm going to grab one of my beads, doesn't matter which one, my 15-0 in my gold, let it drop down next to my form, and then go back through the bead, not through the 15-0, just through the larger bead, and back through the same hole of the form that your thread is coming out of. Give a nice tight pull. First bead is in place. From there, I'm going to go from that small hole up to the big hole and come out. So I'm sewing along the back from the small hole up to the big hole. When I get out the front here, I'm going to add another bead. Add my 15-0. I love this project because it really couldn't be simpler. Go back through then, just the bead, not the 15-0, and back through the loop that you're coming out of. From here, I'm going to go to the next hole. So I'm going to go along the back into the next big hole. From here, I think I'll add a berry on, add a 15, so that berry into place by going back through the berry and not the 15 and out that hole. From here, I'm going to go down to the bottom hole again. So I'm just sewing along the back from one hole to the other. You're going to see that thread along the back. Coming at the bottom, I think I'll add a bigger green one again. My 15. So the 15s are there just to hold it in place. Going back through that, I'm going to go back through the green and back through the loop that the thread was coming out of. Nice tight pull onto the next hole. This is literally all it is sewing on each bead and jumping from one hole to the next along the back. Adding the 15-0, letting it fall next to the formation, going back through the larger bead and out the formation. So for the first go round here of the wreath, I'm going to be just adding one bead per hole. Every single bead or every single hole is going to get a bead. If you want to make it fuller, then you can actually jump over and do multiple beads per hole as we come back around. I think I'm going to make mine fuller at the bottom, and I'm just going to progress as we go. So going through then the next hole, I'm coming out the next large hole, and I'm going to add another one of my dark green beads. And how to pick up what beads and what beads to use, that's all on you. So that's all your creative energy that you really can't screw up. You're just going back through the form then and on to the next one. So you can see, I can see the form a tiny little bit by the time I add in some of my teardrops, which I'm going to do right now, and back through the form. So the teardrop has a hole that is going to let it sit like that and kind of stick out. So I don't have to add a 15 on the side of it. If you want to make it fuller, you can go back through the hole again, like I said, as we go along the top and come back around. So again, just adding in your beads, and I'm letting you just see me sew. Letting those beads drop and adding them in. And there we go. So I'm going to continue along the wreath here. And this in my mind is the top of my wreath. As I get down here to the bottom, I'll show you as I start to add in those flower cups, how that's going to look and how it's going to sit on the actual formation. As my wreath is progressing, one thing if you do want to go with this style of bail is I'm going to add this bail in along the top and actually to the front of the project. Rather than having to sew it in along the back, I'm going to use a bead to hold it in place. So as I continue with my wreath, and if I want kind of this to be the top, I'm going to make sure that I add my bail at the top. What I'm going to do is come out of the hole where I want to add it, sew through the bail. Let it drop down kind of next to that open loop. I'm going to grab my big bead here, which is my 4mm in that Olivine, grab my 15-0, sew back through that loop, going back through the bead and then back through the loop. And that's going to hold that right in place, right there at the top, because the bead is bigger than the hole. You want to make sure to pull the thread nice and tight so there's no extra thread showing along there. And then what I'm actually going to do is go into it also. As I come out the next hole, I'll add my next bead. And if you want to, you can also do a seed bead bail along the back or a triangle bail. That's kind of up to you. This is just a nice, easy option. I'm going to also go through the next and add the next bead. And then to reinforce it, I'm going to go back up through that Olivine bead that's holding on the bail. Back through the 15. So there's going to be 2 threads basically, a total of 4 threads going through 2 passes, 4 threads going through that bead. I'll go to the bead below then, add in my next bead. And by the time you fill in all of your beads near all the adjacent holes, you'll really cover up most of that bail. And it might move around a tiny bit, but as I put it on a chain or create a necklace for it, it'll stay in its slot. The other thing that you can do is right near it, put extra beads along the holes. So here I'm along the next hole. I'm going to go with another big bead. And if I want to, then I'll jump back to the hole right underneath it and I can add another bead hanging out. So I can add like another berry if I want to. Go back through. But this is such a simple way to add a bail onto the project. So I'll go back through that adjacent hole there next to it and add in another berry just so it's a little fuller near the top. So add in a melon bead. And this is also how, when you get to the point, if you do want to make it a little bit fuller, you're just going to share holes. So this bead hole here at the bottom underneath will actually have 2 beads coming out of it. And there we go. So now my bail is on of my wreath and I'm just going to continue moving along. If you want to, you can come back and reinforce that as you go on and create more of the project. Another really cute idea, if you want to, you can take a little piece of ribbon and actually tie a bow right along the top of that bail. So as I'm creating my wreath here, I'm at the point now where I want to add in some of my flowers. So again, you can add them in along the design like Anna did, and she has that mint luster. I'm going to be adding them in just kind of in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm also going to concentrate a lot more berries there too to make it look like it's concentrated along the bottom like you would see kind of a real wreath. So as you add in the first of your teardrop or your first of your flower cups, it's the same exact thing. I'm going up through the back of the flower cup. And as I come out the top, I'm going to grab one of those red 11-0 seed beads and go back through the flower cup and back through the hole my thread's coming out of. Pulling them. You may have to kind of hold up on the 11-0, push everything down, pull the thread through, and then make sure the thread is nice and tight. So there's my first little flower on, right there. I'm going to go up through the next hole, add another green bead on. Then I have 5 flowers out here. I think that's all I'm going to add. You'll start to realize as you're making it what you think it's lacking and what you think it needs. So far along the wreath, I've only added 4 extra beads. And what I mean by extra beads are beads 2 per hole. So I've only done that 4 times to make it this fullness. Coming up then again underneath here, I'll add another little berry. Like I said, I'm going to concentrate more berries along the bottom to make it look like a real wreath that would hang on your door. Another cute idea that I mentioned was going through and actually tying on some ribbon. I have the bead on there, and you can see you want to make sure that after every bead that you add, you make sure that there's no extra thread showing. You may need to push the bead along the project and then kind of pull, because sometimes the 15-0s do not want any extra thread showing, but I don't want any loops along the back to be showing. From here then, one more time, I'm going to add another flower up through the back of the flower cup, adding in my 11-0, coming back through the flower cup and back through the form. And there I have my another little flower cup on. You can see they sit pretty perfectly when they're surrounded by the 3 and the 4 millimeter beads. So I'm going to continue on adding in the rest of my little flower cups here along this bottom, and then I'm going to finish up my wreath with more of my green beads. So you can see the fullness of my wreath versus Anna's wreath, doing more 4 millimeter and concentrating more of those flower cups around the project, versus me that wanted to keep it kind of like a wreath that you would see and keep more of the berries and the flower cups towards the end. As I come out the project and add in my last bead, I can then go up and fill in more if I would want to and make the wreath fuller. That's an option and kind of up to you. But as I come to the back, and if you want to, I'm always tempted to use the rest of my thread, so to come in and kind of add a couple beads here and there, but I'm just going to finish it off and show you kind of how to do that. Along the back we have that original starter tail. I am going to take my thread and literally tie another knot there. So simple. So if you've actually never done bead weaving, if you can sew on a button, you can do this project. It's literally just going from one hole to the other hole and then tying the thread a knot together. If you would have if you would not have put the bail here and you want to use a different bail, you can always do that as well. You can go back to just making a seed bead bail. You can use a jump ring. If you want to do a Christmas ornament, you can get an ornament hanger or a piece of wire and just do that. And I'm going to go through now. And last step, take the thread zap or the thread burner, burn down those thread ends and burn them down flush next to my project. We actually have a lot of different forms, like this filigree form that has a lot of different holes that you can play around with and look online through a lot of the different metal. You can search by filigree and things with holes. There's also one that has a rope design to it. You can play around with doing this design with other beads as well too. You can make it almost like a donut pendant and string that on. The other donut that you have, if you want to, you can make it into the same design or really do a formulated design where you do all one color on the inside, another color of crystals on the outside. So have fun creating with these forms. Again, it makes it so simple, so easy to create, and so easy to make a thoughtful gift for someone as well. If you need the materials, again, that brass filigree donut or any of the beads, back at the beginning of the video, I listed those out. You can feel free to shop with me at PotomacBeads.com. Also, below the video in that show more information or the more description of the project, we'll have links in there as well. You can always also stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, as well as join our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making, exchange ideas, show designs, get advice, get inspiration, and just interact with a great group of people that love to make jewelry. Also, another thing, you can always subscribe to this YouTube channel and then get regular updates from me as well as some of our wonderful designers when we do new projects, as well as get new beads in and describe to you guys what's going on in the beading world. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks Anna for sitting down to do this fun design, and have fun making the Filigree Christmas Wreath Pendant.